The midwife's hands trembled as she cleaned the newborn. In all her 30 years of delivering babies in Enugu, she had never seen anything like this. The child's skin was mottled with dark patches, her limbs appeared twisted, and her head seemed too large for her tiny body. "Madam Chisholm," the midwife whispered, "your baby." Chisholm, still weak from the difficult labor, turned her head slowly. "Let me see my princess," she said with a tired smile. When the midwife placed the baby in her arms, Chisholm's smile vanished instantly. Her eyes widened in horror, and she let out a scream that could wake the ancestors. "What is this? This is not my child!" She pushed the baby away so violently that the midwife had to catch the infant before she hit the floor. Emeka burst into the room, his face bright with anticipation. "My wife, where is our?" His words died in his throat when he saw the baby. The color drained from his face and he took several steps backward. "Emeka," Chisholm wept. "Look what came from my womb. We prayed for 9 months. We fasted. We gave offerings. Is this God's answer to our prayers?" The midwife, trying to maintain her composure, said gently, "Sometimes children are born different, but they are still blessings." "Blessing?" Emeka's voice cracked. "This looks like a curse. What will people say when they see this thing?" Chisholm turned her face to the wall. "Take it away. I don't want to see it again." That night, while Emeka paced in their small parlor, Chisholm made a decision that would haunt her for years to come. She waited until the compound was silent, then wrapped the baby in an old wrapper and slipped out into the darkness. The Adada River flowed gently behind their village, its waters reflecting the moon like a silver mirror. Chisholm stood at the bank, the baby quiet in her arms, almost as if the child sensed what was about to happen. "I'm sorry," Chisholm whispered, tears mixing with the night air. "I wanted a child I could be proud of, someone beautiful, someone normal, not this." She looked down at the baby's unusual features one last time. "Maybe the river spirits will have mercy on you where I cannot." With shaking hands, she lowered the bundle into the water and watched as it began to drift downstream. The baby didn't cry, she simply floated as if the river itself was cradling her. Chisholm ran home, her heart pounding, telling herself she had done what was necessary. At dawn, Amara was checking her fishing nets when she noticed something unusual floating in the quiet bend of the river. At first, she thought it was debris, but as it came closer, her eyes widened in shock. "Kelechi," she called to her teenage son, who was washing by the riverbank. "Come quickly." Together, they pulled the soggy bundle from the water. Inside was a tiny baby girl, still breathing, her big eyes staring up at them with an intensity that seemed otherworldly. "Mama, she's alive," Kelechi whispered in amazement. "How is she still alive?" Amara cradled the baby close to her chest. She had buried 3 children in her lifetime, lost her husband to illness, and raised Kelechi alone. She knew the value of life, no matter what form it took. "Because the river protected her," Amara said firmly. "This child was meant to live." They rushed to the village clinic, where the nurse confirmed what Amara suspected. This baby had several medical conditions that would require ongoing care and likely surgery. "The treatments will be expensive," the nurse warned, "and there's no guarantee." Amara looked down at the baby in her arms. "What should we call you, little river child?" As if in response, the baby's tiny hand wrapped around Amara's finger with surprising strength. "Adaze," Amara decided. You are a king's daughter, no matter what anyone says. Over the following months, Amara sold everything she owned, her late husband's land, her jewelry, even her fishing boat. Every naira went toward Adaize's medical care. The baby endured surgery after surgery to correct her cleft palate, straighten her limbs, and address the various complications she'd been born with. The villagers whispered behind Amara's back. She's wasting her life on a cursed child, they said. That baby should have stayed in the river. But Amara never wavered. She worked multiple jobs, washing clothes for wealthy families in town, selling vegetables in the market, cleaning offices at night. Kelechi, now grown, stood by his mother's side, helping care for his adopted sister with the devotion of a blood brother. Adaize is my sister, he would tell anyone who dared speak against her. Touch her, and you deal with me. Despite the hardships, their small home was filled with laughter and love. Adaize grew into a bright, determined child with an insatiable curiosity about everything around her. Her scars had faded with time and surgery, but her eyes remained unusually large and penetrating, windows to a brilliant mind that seemed to absorb knowledge like dry earth soaks up rain. Meanwhile, Chisom and Emeka's life crumbled. After that night by the river, Chisom never conceived again. They consulted traditional healers, visited prayer houses, and spent their savings on fertility treatments, but her womb remained empty. Their once comfortable home fell into disrepair. Emeka's business failed, and they were forced to move from their nice house to a small, leaking room in a poor area of town. The shame ate away at their marriage until they barely spoke to each other. Maybe this is our punishment, Chisom would whisper during the long, sleepless nights. Emeka would turn away, unable to bear the weight of what they had done. Years passed, and their situation only worsened. Chisom developed health problems that the doctors couldn't explain. Chronic pain that moved through her body like a restless spirit, never settling in one place long enough for treatment. By age 16, Adaize had graduated secondary school as the best student in her state. Scholarships poured in from universities across Nigeria and abroad. She chose to study medicine, driven by a desire to help children like herself. I want to fix what's broken, she told Amara one evening as they sat in their modest but warm home. I want to make sure no child ever feels unwanted because of how they look. Amara smiled, her weathered hands stroking Adaize's hair. My daughter, you've already done that. You've shown the world that beauty comes in many forms. Kelechi, now a successful engineer, grinned from across the room. Our little sister is going to be the most famous doctor in Nigeria. Just wait and see. Adaize laughed, those distinctive eyes sparkling with joy and determination. I'm going to specialize in pediatric surgery. Children born with conditions like mine shouldn't have to suffer alone. 7 years after leaving for medical school abroad, Dr. Adaize Okwu returned to Nigeria as one of the youngest board-certified pediatric surgeons in the country. She had completed her residency at prestigious hospitals in London and New York, but her heart called her back home. She established the River of Hope Foundation in Enugu, providing free medical care for children with birth defects and deformities. Her clinic became famous across West Africa, and parents travelled from neighbouring countries seeking her expertise. The media loved her story. The abandoned child who became a healer. but they never knew the full truth of how she came to be floating in that river. Amara, now in her 60s, lived like a queen in the beautiful house Adais had built for her. Kelechi had married and made Amara a grandmother, but Adais remained the crown jewel of their family. "You saved my life twice," Adais would often tell Amara. "Once when you pulled me from the river, and again when you chose to love me every day after." The news of Dr. Adais's foundation eventually reached Chisom's ears through a neighbor who recognized the story. She had been following every newspaper article, every television interview, with growing certainty that this miracle doctor was her lost daughter. By then, Chisom was a broken woman. She and Emeka lived in abject poverty, surviving on charity from distant relatives who barely tolerated them. Her mysterious illness had worsened, leaving her weak and in constant pain. "Emeka," she said one morning, her voice barely a whisper. "I know where our daughter is." She showed him a newspaper clipping with Adaez's picture. The eyes were unmistakable, large, intelligent, unforgettable. Emeka stared at the photo for a long time. "She became everything we were too blind to see," he said finally. They spent their last few naira on transportation to Enugu, carrying nothing but their shame and a desperate hope for forgiveness. The River of Hope Foundation was housed in a modern building with gardens full of children playing, little ones who had received successful treatments and were now living normal lives. The sight broke Chisom's heart as she imagined what could have been. They joined the long line of parents seeking help for their children, but when their turn came, the receptionist was firm. "The doctor only sees 5 emergency cases per month. The list is full." Chisom collapsed to her knees in the waiting room. "Please," she begged, "tell her that her mother is here. Tell her the woman who threw her in the river needs her help." The receptionist's expression changed from annoyed to shocked. She had heard whispers about Dr. Adaez's origin story, but to have someone claim to be the mother who abandoned her. "Wait here," she said quietly. Dr. Adaez was in her office reviewing patient files when the receptionist knocked. The message hit her like a physical blow. The parents who had abandoned her were outside, begging to see her. For several minutes, she sat in silence, her mind racing back to that night by the river that she didn't remember but had somehow always felt in her bones. Finally, she stood up, straightened her white coat, and walked to the waiting room. Chisom looked up from her position on the floor and gasped. Even through the years and the changes, those eyes were unmistakable. The baby she had thrown away now stood before her as a beautiful, accomplished woman. "You wanted to see me?" Dr. Adaez's voice was calm, professional. Chisom struggled to speak through her tears. "My daughter, I know I don't deserve to call you that, but—" "You're right," Adaez interrupted. "You don't deserve to call me that. I have a mother. Her name is Amara, and she loved me when you couldn't." Emeka stepped forward, his hands shaking. "We were wrong. We were young, scared, stupid. We see that now." Adaez studied them both, these broken people who had given her life but not love. "Why are you here?" Chisom's voice cracked. "I'm dying. The doctors can't find what's wrong with me. I've been sick for years, ever since that night. I think my body's punishing me for what I did. And you think I should help you?" Adaez's tone remained steady, but something flickered in her eyes. "I don't expect forgiveness," Chisom whispered. "But maybe you could try to heal what we broke. Not for us, but because you're a healer." Dr. Adaez spent the next hour examining Chisom thoroughly. What she found was a complex web of psychosomatic illness. Chisom's guilt and trauma had manifested as very real physical symptoms that had been destroying her health for years. Your body is in pain because your soul is in pain, Adeze explained clinically. The guilt has been eating you alive from the inside. Chisom nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. I've known for years. Every day I wonder what happened to you, whether you suffered, whether you died cold and alone because of me. Adaize was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a photo. It showed her with Amara and Kelechi at a medical school graduation, all of them beaming with pride and joy. I didn't die cold and alone, she said softly. I was loved, deeply, completely loved by people who chose me when you couldn't. She set down the photo and looked directly at Chisom. I can help treat your symptoms, but the real healing has to come from you. You need to forgive yourself before your body can forgive you. Over the following weeks, Dr. Adaize treated Chisom with a combination of medicine and therapy. She also insisted that both Chisom and Emeka participate in counseling sessions to address their trauma and guilt. But she made one thing clear from the beginning. I will help you heal because I took an oath to heal. But we are not family. My family is the one that raised me. Emeka accepted this, completely grateful for any kindness from the daughter he had rejected. But as the treatments continued, something unexpected began to happen. Chisom started volunteering at the foundation, helping other parents who were struggling to accept their children's differences. She would sit with mothers in the waiting room and tell them her story, not to seek sympathy, but to warn them against making her mistake. I threw away the greatest gift God ever gave me, she would say. Don't let fear make you do the same. One day, Dr. Adaize was surprised to find Amara in her office with a serious expression on her face. Mama, what brings you here today? Adaize asked, immediately concerned. Amara sat down slowly. I've been watching that woman, your birth mother. She's been volunteering here for weeks, helping other parents. I know, I've been observing her too. She's broken, my daughter, completely broken by what she did. And I think maybe it's time. Time for what, Mama? Amara reached out and took Adaize's hands. Time for you to show her the mercy that the river showed you. Not because she deserves it, but because you do. Because carrying anger will poison you the way guilt poisoned her. Adaize was quiet for a long time. You want me to forgive them completely? I want you to be free, Amara said gently. They can never be your parents. I will always be your mother, and Kelechi will always be your brother. But maybe they can be something else. Maybe they can be the cautionary tale that helps other families choose love. That evening, Dr. Adaize invited Chisom and Emeka to join her for a walk by the same river where she had been found. The water flowed gently in the twilight, carrying leaves and debris downstream, just as it had carried a baby girl 23 years earlier. This river taught me something, Adaize said as they stood on the bank. It taught me that some things that seem like endings are actually beginnings. Chisom stared at the water, her face wet with tears. I stood right here, right in this spot. And you made a choice based on fear. Adias finished. And that choice led to consequences you've lived with every day since. She turned to face both of them. I forgive you, not because what you did was acceptable, but because forgiveness is what heals us all. Chisom collapsed to her knees again, but this time Adaize reached down and helped her stand. But understand this, Adaize continued. Forgiveness doesn't mean we pretend the past didn't happen. It means we choose not to let the past poison our future. In the months that followed, a new dynamic emerged. Chisom and Emeka became passionate advocates for the foundation, sharing their story with parents across Nigeria and warning them against the dangers of rejecting children who were born different. Their testimonials were powerful because they were real. Two people who had made a terrible mistake and spent years paying for it, now dedicated to ensuring others didn't repeat their error. Dr. Adaize never called them mother and father. Amara retained that honor completely, but she did eventually begin to refer to them by their names rather than the people who abandoned me. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. It was something more complex and realistic. A working relationship built on shared purpose rather than manufactured affection. On the 5th anniversary of the River of Hope Foundation, Dr. Adiez stood before a crowd of hundreds of families whose children had been helped by her work. Amara sat in the front row, beaming with pride, while Kelechi recorded everything on his phone to share with his own children. In the back of the room, Chisom and Emeka sat quietly, no longer the broken people who had first arrived, begging for help. Chisom's health had improved dramatically as she found purpose in helping others, and Emeka had started a small support group for fathers struggling to accept their children's differences. 5 years ago, Doctor, Adaize began her speech. This foundation was born from a simple belief that every child deserves love and acceptance, regardless of how they look or what challenges they face. She paused, her eyes scanning the audience. Some of you know my story. You know that I was once a child who was rejected and abandoned. But what you might not know is that this rejection became the foundation of my purpose. Her voice grew stronger. The river that was meant to be my grave became my salvation. The woman who couldn't love me led me to the woman who could. The pain of rejection taught me to embrace others who feel unwanted. She looked directly at Amara, to my mother, who told me that family is not just about blood, but about choice, sacrifice, and unconditional love. Thank you for seeing beauty where others saw only flaws. Then her gaze shifted to the back of the room. And to those who could not love me then, but have learned to love others now, thank you for turning your mistake into a mission to help families stay together. Years later, Doctor, Adaize's story was taught in medical schools across Africa as an example of how trauma can be transformed into purpose. The River of Hope Foundation had grown into a network of clinics across West Africa, and hundreds of children had been saved from abandonment through the family counseling programs that Chisom and Emeka helped develop. Amara lived to see her beloved daughter receive international recognition for her work. She passed away peacefully at the age of 78, surrounded by her family, knowing that the baby she had pulled from the river had grown up to pull hundreds of other children from their own rivers of despair. At Amara's funeral, Dr. Adaize delivered a eulogy that moved everyone present. But perhaps the most powerful moment came when Chisom approached her afterward. "She was a better mother to you than I ever could have been," Chisom said quietly. "But I want you to know I'm proud of the woman you became. Not because of anything I did, but because of everything she taught you." Dr. Adaize nodded. The river taught me that rejection doesn't have to be the end of the story. Sometimes it's just the beginning of a better one. The Adada River still flows behind the village, carrying away debris and bringing new life. And sometimes, late at night, the old people say you can hear the sound of children laughing in its waters, the laughter of those who were saved by love when the world would have discarded them. This story serves as a reminder that every child is precious, regardless of their appearance or abilities. It challenges us to choose love over fear, acceptance over rejection, and to remember that what we see as imperfection may actually be the seed of greatness waiting to bloom. Thanks for watching.